重磅消息：2020年度烧脑大片《天能》又宣布延期了，而且还是无限期延档。诺兰影迷真是要哭晕在厕所里。华纳兄弟高层的多方讨论后，认为这不是《天能》最适切的上映时间点，并决定在找到天时地利人和的良机前，不再许诺粉丝一个确切的日期。华纳兄弟的态度也是对诺兰电影的一种尊重，毕竟这万人期待、纯诺兰制造烧脑动作爽片是值得人民对待的。诺兰的电影为什么这么让人着迷？如何成为像诺兰一样成功的电影导演？今天在这里为大家分享诺兰导演成功的10条原则。第一，想到就去做，只有从拍电影中学会拍电影。
Because you didn't go to film school. This isn't
No,
what you
I couldn't
did.
get in.
Couldn't get in. They looked at your early work and said,
No,
"This guy has no
chance."
future.
Exactly.
No, this is all
Exactly.
over." So were you watching other movies too?
I've always watched movies. I mean, I've always been a student of films. And I think it was Stanley Kubrick who basically said, if you want to learn how to make a film, just make a film. And that was sort of my approach. I started making films when I was 7 years old on Super 8, you know, and I never really stopped. And then my first feature, Following, you know, was made on 16mm with friends who just did it on the weekends and put it together.
第二，找到独属于自己的特点。
When you're starting out particularly, you have to play to your strengths. You have to do something that really excites you, and whatever's different about that. And in the case of Following, the non-linear structure was a somewhat unusual choice. But it's those things that are the strength of the project. It's the things that you can bring to what you're doing or bring to the filmmaking craft that maybe not everybody else is doing, maybe not everybody else can do or has thought to do. That's what's going to distinguish the thing. So it might seem in some ways more difficult or seem like something that would make the project more difficult to sell when it's finished, you know, what have you. But for me, I think the answer was definitely to try to play to my strengths and the things that I personally was passionate about.
第三，尝试一切可能。
You're doing films just with friends with no money, you know, on a shoestring. You have to be able to do all the jobs, because when we made Following, for example, we were just shooting on Saturdays. We all had jobs in the week. And so not everybody would turn up, and sometimes you'd be recording sound, and sometimes you'd be shooting the film. And, you know, you really had to know a bit of everything, because you didn't quite know, you know, who your crew was going to be on the day. And it's a wonderful way to learn everything. And the larger the films have become, I think the more I've been able to appreciate the learning that I did by doing. And I know enough about every job on set to sort of be a pain in the arse to everybody, you know, just enough to not say I can do your job, but just to give them an idea that I'm paying attention to what they're doing and that I'm asking for a particular approach. And it gives you confidence as a filmmaker. I recommend it to any young filmmaker starting out, is just try everything. Try recording sound, try shooting, try lighting, try a bit of everything, except maybe acting. But if you can get your head around all those different disciplines, you don't feel quite so at the mercy of your crew. And there's an interesting relationship as a director between yourself and the people who work for you on set, which is they're looking to you for leadership and guidance. And I think they also want to feel like you care about their job. And I think one of the ways of showing somebody that you care about their job, you know, is to know about it and be able to engage in a conversation with the sound department about microphones and which microphones they're using and things like that.
第四，了解你的观众。
No, I mean, I've been working in a pretty commercial end of things. You know,
Yeah.
I've been making movies for audiences, you know, and so I'm always, you know, people often ask me about that sort of stuff, and it's like, you know, it'd be thrilling to be nominated for an Oscar as a director. I mean, obviously I've grown up watching the Oscars, and I'm a member of the Academy proudly, and I have been nominated for writing, which I was very, very proud of. But at the end of the day, for me, the movies are all about the audience. And with these films I've been making, they're about reaching a wide audience, really speaking to a lot of people. And so that's really the guiding principle for me. And if that's not necessarily what speaks to Oscar voters or all the rest. It's not something you can worry about. You just got to get on and do the film that you believe in.
第五，丰富一切关于电影制作的各个方面经验。
For me, everything I did to do with the camera, to do with editing, was useful experience and stuff that paid off when I came to actually make features. And really, everything you do, you learn from in terms of any time you're shooting something, a short film, particularly short film. When you try to write the script for a short film, it's very difficult to write a short film. I think in some ways it's harder than for a feature to have a complete idea in just a few minutes and have a beginning, a middle, and an end, have an appropriate conclusion. So you learn a lot about narrative structure doing shorter films. But really every job I did, including corporate videos and industrial training films and things where I'd have to go to a company and throw up some lights and shoot interviews, with executives and things like that. You're always learning about your craft. You're always learning about, how to balance the pragmatic requirements, the race against time, using the equipment you've got in a short space of time to sort of get something that you can use. It's all useful experience.
第六，挑战自我。
Create visuals or situations that I actually don't know how to do. And I try to take my director's hat off when I'm writing and write things that I then come to as a director and I say, I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea what this will look like, how to visualize it. Because that's when you're challenging yourself. And it's through that challenge, you then put together a great team of people. And through that challenge, you find something that you haven't done before. You find something fresh and different. And that's really the fun part of filmmaking, that challenge.
第七，足够在乎拍电影这件事。
Making films is always about facing seemingly insurmountable odds. Anybody who tries out to go out and direct a film and has to get a budget, has to get a crew together, has to surmount all kinds of obstacles. And so I'm just trying to position and empower filmmakers to view their choice of medium as one of the things that they have to fight for. And none of these fights are easy, particularly when you're starting out. But they're all worth fighting for, and they're all part of that tension and that process that filmmakers go through to tell the stories that they want to tell. And I think some of that tension can actually be productive because you're made to think about what's important to you and what you really care about. And what we want to see as filmgoers on screen are stories and presentations that the people who made them care deeply about.
第八，坚持做你自己。
What was important in retrospect, when I look back at it, was to, well, as we say in English, to stick to my guns. What that means really is have a point of view that you can bring to the table that isn't necessarily the same as everybody else's, and stick with that and try and fight for that. Because there are lots of filmmakers who can do films that already exist. So if you're going to distinguish yourself, it's those things that are a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult about what you do that could be of value.
第九，尽一切努力。
I couldn't get my head around that at all. To me, each shot, if it's important enough to be in the film, if it goes on that screen, I feel like I should be shooting it. And so for me, I like to say the screen is the same size, whether the shot is small or whether the shot is large. It's all storytelling information. And the other thing I've learned over the years is if you talk about inserts of an actor's hands, for example, an actor performing an action, there's performance in those gestures, and you can really see that. And any time in any of my films, there's been something where we've had to do it without the actor or put an insert in or whatever. It always bothers me afterwards. You never quite get that level of performance, that level of integration. So the idea of embarking on a film and sitting down with the producers at the beginning and saying, okay, well, I don't need to direct those parts or those parts. I've never understood that. To me, if I'm the director, I have to be shooting all of the shots that go in the film.
第十，成为更优秀的人，让别人愿意与你合作。
The ultimate gaffer, that guy.
Yeah, he is. He's just the skipper.
He sees everything in the film at once because he pulls time around so much in his films. He has to, and obviously you've got your own little moment to think about. But that guy, he sees everything He's a man with a plan, very much so.
Yeah, he was very, very approachable to talk about it. I found him so. He didn't talk about it much on the set. But when I met him, first of all, we talked extensively about the script and the story, and I had questions about what happened in the gaps in between scenes, as there was room for different possibilities there, and I wanted to know what he had imagined.
He was really open to you offering whatever you had going on. I think partly the reason he cast us because he trusted our taste and he wanted us to bring what we had to the floor, and he completely allowed that. You know, you were coming up with all sorts of suggestions, and he would, you know, he wrote the script and he'd be like, well, let's try it, throw it in, try it. He wasn't precious about it at all. Which really made a huge difference for us. It gave us a real freedom to play about.
He doesn't talk about things he doesn't need to talk about, Chris.
Yeah.
He's actually quite shy, I think. And on set, he had so many things to think about because everything is real in front of the camera. So there was an enormous amount of stuff to coordinate amongst the unpredictable nature of the ocean and the weather and things like that.
There was one moment where the Messerschmitt was coming over the Moonstone. And I was on the bow of the ship, the bow of the boat, watching this come over, and Hoyter had the camera just right here, and Chris was stood next to it with his monitor, and it comes over, and I'm just like
No, they're the baddies!
And Chris was like, cut, we need to go. You can't smile, Tom, you can't smile. I was like, I'm so sorry, it was just so cool.
希望你喜欢我今天分享的内容。如果你还有订阅的话，记得点击订阅铃铛小按钮，这样你就不会错过下期的精彩内容了。我们下一期见。